All right, so let's zoom out here and talk big picture of Frank Kaminsky. Where did you play college basketball?
University of Wisconsin.
Ooh, how was that?
It was amazing. I remember being recruited. People tell this story all the time. They think if you made it to the NBA, like you were always this like amazing like player. I tell people this all the time. I was ranked like my senior year in high school. I was ranked like 12th or 13th in my state. I had 6 scholarship offers in total, all the small schools in Illinois plus Northwestern and Wisconsin. Knew right when I stepped on Wisconsin's campus and went for my visit that it was the place. I just had this feeling that it was the place for me. My mom, my aunt, and my uncle were all in the Hall of Fame in Northwestern for sports. They all played there. They were at the same time. They were all there together at once. And my mom wanted me to go to Northwestern so bad. But I just knew when I went to Wisconsin that it was the place for me. It's a great school. I could highly recommend it.
What did you like about it so much?
2 hours away from home, so not far, 2.5 hours away from home. My family could come to every game. Always wanted to play in the Big Ten. I'm from Chicago, so when you're like kind of in the Big Ten states, it's like everyone cheers for Big Ten schools or Notre Dame. That's kind of what it is. And I don't know. I just always wanted to play in that conference. So I remember schools from like other conferences used to call. I'd be like, I'm playing in the Big Ten. Like that's where I want to play. And just Wisconsin fit me the best. And I'm happy I made that decision.
Yeah, you definitely have some memes out there. Was it memes or not memes? You had the GIFs, the GIFs. GIFs from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
There's a few.
I enjoyed that's what like the way it is today. It's like the NBA kids can't wait to leave college. Like I didn't want to leave. Like if I would have had another year of eligibility, like the COVID year or something they did, I would have considered staying. Like I was just having a great time. And the whole landscape of college has changed too with the whole NIL deals and everything, but that's a totally different.
Well, hold on, let's go there real quick. How do you feel about the NIL? Let me hit pause and say, because my fear is like the next generation of college kids coming up into the pro ranks. Like some of them are making more money from their NIL deals than maybe some of their rookie deals coming in. Like what's your perspective on the NIL?
I think it's great. I mean, for the vast majority of players, like in college is the highest value your name is ever going to be. There's just some people that are like that. You know, I think back to like my days, you know, just like the big college players who never went on to have like any sort of professional career. And I played with a lot of guys who, while we were in college, they would have loved to have been able to capitalize off their name. So I think it's amazing. I think some of the numbers are inflated right now. Some of the stuff you read, like quarterbacks getting like $8 million to go to these schools and stuff. I think some of that's ridiculous and it's always going to autocorrect. But in the beginning, obviously it's super inflated, but I'll never be mad about someone else making money. So I think it's good overall for the landscape of college. I just hope, especially in the basketball world, I see the shift of, you know, kids going to prep schools, like thinking they're going to cakewalk their way into like millions of dollars just because their name is big while they're in high school. And I'm just scared that is going to be a substitute for like the stories of people like me who had to like kind of struggle their way and work their way into being in the spotlight and, you know, kind of work to get to where you're at right now. Some people they just kind of assume it's going to happen, and that's totally different.
What year were you drafted?
2015.
And first round, second round?
First round. It was the 9th overall pick.
So top 10 pick. Okay,
Yeah.
So how does, from my understanding of the draft process, how does your ranking in draft order influence maybe your rookie deal?
So if you're a first round pick, obviously there's a scale. So the number 1 overall pick is the highest. It's coming from up there. I can move over a little bit. What is it? And then it's like to the lottery is a certain pay scale, and then after that, and then you're essentially on a 4-year deal. So it's 2 years guaranteed, and then a option for your 3rd season and an option for your 4th season by the team. So the team can have control of you essentially for 4 years, and then your pay scale is like now it's like the first overall pick makes like $9 million in their first year, and it goes up to like 14 or 15 by their 4th year if they pick up their options. It was different when I was like kind of that bridge when that massive TV deal for the NBA hit after my rookie year.
God, okay, that was gonna be my next question. Where did your draft class fit within that massive TV deal?
So I remember, I was the 9th overall pick in 2015. You remember we had Jalen Smith in Phoenix. He was I think 10th or 11th overall pick.
Okay.
What he made in his first year was over double what I made in my first year, and that was in 4 or 5 years time. So just the money in the NBA is just skyrocketed, and then there's going to be another TV deal soon, and I assume that's going to create another huge bubble of cash being brought into the league. And then everything with like gambling and FanDuel, DraftKings, like all these things, it's just like the money for the NBA, it's never going to be an issue. Like you see these huge contracts, and at the end of the day, it's not a big deal.
So then aside from the financial aspect, how like from 2015 to 2023, is there anything else in the league that you've noticed change?
There's a lot. I mean, even from your respective department, my first like medical like training staff for my first 4 years in the league was we had a head athletic trainer, an assistant trainer, and that was it for the whole team. We didn't have directors of rehab. We didn't have PTs. We didn't have massage therapists. We didn't have any of that stuff. And it was like kind of that shift from like old school into like kind of new school, like the old way of doing things that worked for like, because there's still a lot of old school coaches and stuff like that, old school staffs, old school GMs. But now there's like this new wave of investment into player health and player performance. And, when I went from, it kind of started changing in Charlotte my last year there when they hired a new GM and a new staff and everything, but it still was nowhere near what I experienced. I think you remember when I first got to Phoenix, I was like, I'm not used to having this stuff. Like I've never had it before. Like even in college, we had student athletic trainers, but we really only had like one athletic trainer and a team doctor, and that was it. So I wasn't used to having like these huge staffs of people. Like, if I twist an ankle, I have someone that's working with me like round the clock all day to try to get it like back healthy. In college, if you twisted your ankle, you had like a little bit of time to go rehab with one guy that was taking care of 15 guys on the team, 15, 17 guys on the team. It's just different now. That's honestly the investment into like the players and like the player performance and player health and all that stuff is definitely the biggest thing I've seen. And
do you think y'all are reaping the benefits of it as well?
Absolutely. What's the prime example? Wouldn't LeBron like be the poster boy for like kind of that? What is he in year 20? He's averaging 30 points a game. There's always guys that are just genetically gifted in that way and avoid injury, but you see so many guys who come back from injuries faster now. I remember ACL tears and stuff like that used to be like a year and a half, and you see a lot of guys that are able to come back now in 8-9 months, sometimes shorter, just depending on the player. It's just, guys getting injured is always going to happen, but how fast you can get them back healthy and on the court is obviously going to pay dividends for the organization and the fans and everybody, and even the player too.
Right. As a player, how do you view the injury process?
It always sucks. There's no way around it. Like just getting injured in general sucks. And sometimes it comes at the worst times. I can only talk from my own experience. It feels like every time I get injured, it just comes at like the worst time. Like my first year in Phoenix, what was it? 2019, 2020. You remember I had 4 or 5 months of waiting for my stress fracture in my knee to heal. And on the day that I got the call that I could get back on the court was the day that Rudy Gobert tested positive for coronavirus. Everything shut down. Didn't really get to go back on the court even before the bubble, head to the bubble. It's just like, it felt like every single time it was about to trend up in the right direction, I just kind of got the unfortunate side of luck. But then even like last year, we were 14, 15 games into the season, I was playing extremely well, and I just told you after one game, I was like, yeah, my knee kind of doesn't feel great again. And then, get scans done, it's like happening all over again. It's just, that's the side of injuries that really can mess with your head. Things start going well and going in the right direction, then it kind of just all comes crashing down. But, injuries are going to happen. That's part of the game. That's part of what you sign up for. And, you just got to do whatever you can to try to get healthy and just stick with the process.
So when an initial injury happens, right, because you've gone through small ones and you've gone through big ones. When the initial injury happens, what are the first steps you take as a player to kind of make a decision?
If it's something like small, like twisting an ankle or jamming a finger, knee a little bit sore, something that you're dealing with inflammation or something, like those are pretty easy. Like, you learn what works best for you and how to deal with those certain things. Like for me, it's always kind of like recurring stuff. Like I always twist my left ankle. Like it's never my right. So like now when I twist my left ankle, I know like what works for me, like to get it back to being healthy. When it's the big stuff, I mean, you got to rely on, people like you, the team, get scans done, get imaging done to know like the extent of the injury. Because if you're feeling something and it's not going away and it's getting worse, I think you can kind of know that it's not just like a tight muscle or, you got a bone bruise or something. I think sometimes you just know when it's more. And, relying on your team, your organization to have your best interests. And then, we have as players now, we have so many different avenues we can go. Like, teams will allow you to go get a second opinion, find a doctor that's like an expert in what you're going through, what you're dealing with. Like with my knee, how many people have you seen that have a stress fracture of their patella that happens twice? Not very many. So I really had to rely on kind of everyone else to give me their knowledge and expertise. Cause it's not like I could go ask a teammate, hey, you broke your finger. Like, what did you do to get your finger fixed? You know what I mean? It's like, you're dealing with different stuff, having surgeries I've never even heard of before, but it's really reliant upon like the experts in the field for, that specific injury, which you are an expert in your field. Specific doctors are experts in their field. They know a lot more than I do. When I was thinking, when they told me I should get surgery, I was like, in my head, I'm just like, surgery equal bad. Like, I don't want to do that, but they know better than me. And I'm now, back healthy, playing again, and really don't have much pain or issues with it at all. But, in the beginning, you're like, I'm going to miss the rest of the season, most likely. I don't really want to have surgery, especially for our team last year in Phoenix. It was probably the best team that I was going to play on. So, it's just tough, but that's what I said. Sometimes the timing of injuries and everything is just unfortunate.
The timing definitely plays a role in it too, because it's not only like what's relevant for you, right? Because there's two aspects of your career. It's what you need for you to take care of you, but then also like you look at the context of that specific case for you. The team is playing really well, so it's like, man, like I need to get back for me, but also like the team needs to get back for me, or vice versa. You can have the opposite where the team maybe is struggling and you maybe have some grace to take care of yourself, not being in a contract year as well.
Yeah, I mean, timing is everything. Just timing and situation. Like if it was, if I would have had that injury and I was in the first year of like a 3-year deal on like a team that's struggling, obviously, as a competitor, you want to go out and play every single night. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I can be healthy and I'll be ready for next year. But, for me in my situation, I was on a 1-year deal coming back after we made the finals. Number 1 team in the league, playing extremely well, had a lot of talent. I was actually playing and helping, so my mentality was, okay, I got to get back, to try to be ready for the end of the season so I can be ready for the playoffs, like if that's a possibility. And that's what I kept telling myself through the whole process. Like for better or for worse, I kept telling myself, okay, just try to be ready for the playoffs. Like do what you can to be ready for the playoffs. And, you work and probably, me, skip some steps that you probably should have gone a little bit slower on. But, you're on a 1-year deal and you're playing on the best team. Like you don't want to miss out on that. So I always want to play. I always want to be a part of everything. So that definitely played a huge role in me trying to get back faster than I probably should have. And then, once it became clear that that probably wasn't going to happen, that's when it was just, all right, I got to slow down and I got to do what's best for me going long term. Like I knew I was on a 1-year deal, but you got to get back healthy to be able to continue playing. So I didn't want to continue to potentially mess something up by trying to push the pace too fast and causing more and more setbacks, as opposed to just taking the correct steps to try to be ready for the next season. that's just like a decision you have to arrive at. Sometimes it's extremely hard for people. Like it was extremely hard for me, but for other people, I think that's a little bit easier of a decision.
The magnitude of what you need versus what the team needs, right? Because you've had experience working with some of the PA, and you're like as a team representative. Like, how do you find the balance of what you need versus what the team needs?
It's always hard. The team, obviously, it's a business. It's about winning. And when you're, when we were the Suns, going to the finals and then kind of reloading the roster a little bit and having a lot of continuity and carryover, the goal is obviously to win the championship the next year. It's not just, the goal our first year was to make the playoffs and like be competitive in a playoff series. And we did that. And then the next year, obviously, after failing in Game 6, it's to win a championship. Like, that was the goal. So it kind of changes just the whole shift in mentality for not only the organization, but all the players, too. And, when you're the one guy kind of on our team, I know we lost Dario the year before in the finals, but, I went into that season healthy and expected to, like, help us get back to the finals because I want to win a championship. That's just, like, my goal. It becomes frustrating when you get injured, but you have so many resources available to you. And, when you have a good staff that's looking out for your best interest, and you also have a players association that's behind you and looking out for your best interest, and you can call them and basically call the players association to be like, look, I need help finding a doctor. I want to get a second opinion. I'm not sure what my options really are because, our team docs can make a recommendation, but at the end of the day, I have to say yes. Like, all the people can tell me this is the best decision for you, but until I'm comfortable making that decision, like, I'm not going to make it. So there's just so many resources available to you now. And then agents, obviously, having an agent who's worked with players who have gotten injured and know good doctors to reach out to and call, it just gives you like a sense of peace that you're like kind of in the best hands. Like, if it's not the organization and you don't, I'm sure there's some organizations out there where players don't necessarily trust the doctors and whoever and want to find like people with more expertise or have been doing it for longer. And my knee injury was such a specific injury. I wanted to make sure that, I knew I had someone who had seen it before and done the surgery before and knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing. That kind of, you remember, that took me a couple weeks to arrive at that, but then I was like, okay, all these people are telling me this is what's best for me, so they probably are not going to do something that's, they're not maniacal, they're not evil. They're not going to make me do something that's going to ruin my career.
Right. And it was a tough process for you because you're weighing, like you are an individual that likes to know information, which I think speaks credit to you because not some athletes that I've spent time around, they just want to be told what to do. And that's totally cool too. But to your point, like you taking ownership, and I think that comes with a sense of maturity of being in the league for so many years. I think one thing that's underappreciated about those that are in the league for a while is like you just see a lot of stuff too. Like you see experiences from other players. One thing you mentioned earlier is like you also, hey, when an injury happens, you're going to talk to a player like, hey, have you done this before? Because that's those are your teammates. Those are the people that you probably trust the most in your career. So leaning on them. But for you in that particular case, you had an uncommon injury with an uncommon surgery, and you did your due diligence to seek out second opinions, seek out other opinions from within the team, outside the team, even other practitioners. I mean, you really went the gamut to your point of taking some time to come to a decision. And I think in the end, it's worked out for you.
Yeah.
Now because the surgery was an unusual surgery, right? How did you prepare for that mentally? Because I think there's a lot of people, right? There's a lot of people that are debating surgery, and we think surgery is a very scary place, and it certainly can be, right? There's some things that are kind of routine, but for anyone that's going through surgery, it's probably a question they ask them, should I or should I not do that? So for you, how did you prepare mentally for surgery?
Well, for starters, I tried to find someone who would tell me I didn't need to have surgery, and that's just me in general. I've had surgeries in the past, and I just did not. There's no way to, like, having surgery stinks. Like, the whole process it's not fun, and I don't I had lung surgery my rookie year, and that surgery kind of just messed me up mentally. I was in the hospital with chest tubes. I had a spontaneous pneumothorax and had a collapsed lung and had to get that fixed after my rookie season. I was in the hospital for 3 days with tubes in my chest. That was just like kind of a miserable experience. And so like whenever I think of surgery, that one pops in my head. So I'm just like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to have surgery. Somebody tell me I don't have to have surgery. That was the start of it for me. But then, having conversations with you, with our team doctors, with my agent, with doctors I got in a second opinion on, everyone was like, this is what's going to help you in your career to be able to maximize your playing career. Because that's what it is. I'm in year 8. I want to have as many years left playing as healthy as possible. I don't want to continue to keep dealing with a stress fractured knee that, might potentially, because both times it kind of snuck up on me, kind of came out of nowhere. Like obviously it wasn't like I had some knee pain and it slowly gradually built up. It felt like both times it just kind of like my knee just started hurting and then it was like past the point of no return already. So it was just getting that, the screws and wire inserted in my knee to make sure that this isn't a problem that I deal with anymore. And that from that point forward, I could continue to play and not have to worry about it. So mentally, it stinks going into it. Like when you find out, especially I sat out for those 6 weeks before trying to see if it would heal on its own and it just didn't. Mentally that's tough because after that 6 weeks, I was like excited, like, okay, is this moving in the right direction? And when you find out it's not, now you need surgery. It's like a blow. It kind of like sucks all the air, like takes the wind out of your sails. But, for the surgery itself, I knew it was best for long-term in my basketball career and would help me get back to being healthy and then not have to deal with it ever again. Because, both doctors I talked to were like, this is something that, could potentially plague you for the rest of your career if you don't get this taken care of. So when I kind of got around to understanding that this is the best for me long-term for my basketball career, it made it a little bit easier. But in the beginning, there was a lot of hesitancy on my part.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's to your point, like you're talking about your livelihood, right? Mm-hmm. Like professional athletes utilize their body as a means of earning a paycheck. And I think we all on the outside looking in think, oh, like if I had to play basketball every day, like I would do it for millions of dollars, but it's an absolute grind and it takes a wear and tear on you guys. I think like the notion of a healthy athlete is kind of an oxymoron at times because you guys are always dealing with something. Like you're always banged up. Something's always going on. And unfortunately, sometimes it's bigger than a small thing or it grows into something more. Right? You wrapped your head around the mental aspect of the surgery, right? A lot of rehab is the physical component too, right? In which you had an understanding, hey, this is going to be a process coming out. It's not a quick fix. How did you approach, like, what was your attitude towards the physical aspect of the rehab?
It was, you can speak on it too, but it was not great in the beginning. I was trying to rush through everything to try to be and I had never had a surgery like that before in my life. So I didn't fully know what to expect. And, I wanted everything to just go perfect from day one. And it's unrealistic. I set unrealistic expectations for myself in the whole physical aspect of everything. You guys gave me crutches and told me to stay off my leg for like a week. And I was like, no, screw that. I'm walking from day one. And that was probably not the smartest decision. I wanted to do more probably than I was ready for in the beginning. And, there was those weird setbacks. There's always going to be little weird setbacks with surgery. It's never going to go exactly how the plan is designed to go. And I know that now, especially having gone through this process that I went through. Just things aren't going to go perfect. There were days where I would come in and have 2-3 great days in a row. And then just that one bad day it felt like it was magnified tenfold. Like, I'm never going to be able to get back to where I was. Like it can be an extremely frustrating process, but you just kind of, knowing what I know now, like mentally I would have stuck with it a little bit better than I did during the whole process. But like I said, you got to factor in everything. You got to factor in, me trying to get back to the playoffs, wanting to win an NBA finals, being the best team in the league, feeling some days like I was capable of doing more than I could. And I probably went too far. and shouldn't have done as much as I did that day. It was just when you take in all of that together, kind of get the formula for it's going to take a little bit longer than it probably should have.
There's two things I'm curious to get your perspective on, because there's a couple of things you mentioned that I think someone in my space, I just genuinely want to know, like how to serve you better, how to be better. So the first thing I heard you say was, you set unrealistic expectations. And then the second thing I heard you say was, trying to help you manage too much too fast, right? So on the first one, how can we do a better job either educating or setting realistic expectations?
I think for starters, you got to have someone that's receptive to the expectations for the process, which, I found things through the process, which I was told that those were, when you tell me like 10 to 12 weeks, like I'm sticking, that's 10 to 12 weeks in my mind. And there's no other way around it. If you tell me I should be, and I asked a ton of questions. I probably asked you guys way too many questions. Like, when am I going to be, like, even like in day 2, when am I going to be able to walk? When am I going to be able to run? When am I going to be able to jump? Like, so you guys are telling me like barriers, or like, you should be able to do this by week 6. You should be able to do this by week 8. And I put you guys kind of in an unfair situation because you didn't, at the end of the day, like those are for the common, that's the way it would normally go. But you have to, like, not everybody's the same. And I felt like, having my first real like surgery like that, this is the standard time frame. Like, I'm sure that like with ACL surgeries, there's guys who come back in 8 months and there's guys it takes like a year and a half to 2 years. It's just everybody's different. And I didn't take that into account when I was asking questions. And I held you guys to my unrealistic expectations as well. So, you did a great job of laying things out for me. It's just up to the person to kind of listen. And I didn't want to listen and I didn't want to hear it. So, that's just me being difficult, me wanting things to happen faster than they probably should have. And you always did a great job of kind of bringing me back and reeling me back in because, those 2 days, like I'd have 2 great days in a row and I'd be like, okay, Adam, I'm ready to go shoot on the court tomorrow. And you'd be like, that's not happening. Like, you're not ready for that. And I'd be frustrated that you were telling me no, like a little kid. But, that goes back to also having a good relationship with the person as well. And like, I trusted you and I knew that you weren't going to do things that were going to, set me back. And you were always going to keep me moving in the right direction, regardless of things I was doing right or wrong.
You remember that, the text message I sent you?
Yes.
A little picture of the graph?
Yes.
Can you explain what that graph was?
It was, if I remember correctly, it was, where things want me to be in like the slow curve of, it's going to be, you're going to have days where it's up and then down and then up and then down. And it couldn't have been more right. You have 2, 3, 4 good days in a row, followed by 2 bad days, another good day, another bad day, 2 good days, 1 bad day. It's never a straight line, but you go up and down and you arrive at the same point. Like, I always knew I was going to get to that point. I just wanted it to be such a meteoric rise, like 4, 5, 6 bad weeks in a row. And then just, I'm ready to go. You wanted
the hover car during Atlanta traffic, and you wanted to just get to the arena as fast as you could.
I wanted to skip all of the steps and have everything just go perfectly. And it's not how it is.
No, unfortunately, it's not. And I think in the incident you referred to where you hear those that, man, he got back in 8 months. Like, don't get us wrong. Like, those are the anomalies, right? Those are the ones you hear about. You don't hear about the other 65% of people that take like the average. I think there's a reason why there's an average.
Yeah.
And, I think to your point, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the goal is to every time you make a tick up, it's a little bit further up than the last one. And yeah, you're going to have dips. Like, that's just how the body adapts, right? Like, you don't, like, think about how you build a muscle. You build a muscle by breaking it down, taking a break, rebuilding it again. Like, if you lift the same weight over and over again, you're eventually not going to grow, but you have to keep overloading. You have those ups and downs. Your body has to adapt to it. It's the same process in rehab, right? We use that analogy. Like, you're starting to feel symptoms as you're going back through rehab, and you say, hey, this is part of the process. Just like you take a week off from the gym, those first 2 days, they suck because you're sore shit.
Yeah.
But then as you get accustomed to it and you start building yourself back up, the rehab process is the same.
Yeah. it's, and the things that frustrated me the most about the whole situation is, you know, like I knew my knee was going to hurt, like, but I didn't take into account, like, you know, the shift I would make, like my body would naturally like try to protect my knee. Like, you remember when we were trying to do the force plates and I was trying so hard to put more weight on my right leg and I just like couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. That was the extremely frustrating part for me, because I'm sitting there in my mind, like, I know I can do this. I know, like, I can use my right leg more than I'm using it, but it just wouldn't happen. And that goes back into the parts, like, you know, there's going to be atrophy. Things are going to shut off. It's going to take time to rework certain muscle groups back into stuff. And I would get extremely sore and I would try to pump my quad and find a way to do it. And then the next day my quad would be extremely sore. And it's like, it just felt like a cycle for a while. And that used to be extremely, extremely frustrating for me.
It's very frustrating because you're like, it's almost like you're just trying to stay afloat above water.
Yep.
And like, you're just trying to stay afloat until eventually, like, okay, now I can swim. And then like you can eventually come out of the water. Now you're like, you're on your feet running.
But it felt like I was trying to stay above water and there was like 5 people pulling me down. That's what it felt like for a while.
Like when those moments happen, right? Like emotionally, physically, like I would imagine over the course of that process, there was maybe some things you either had to like talk to yourself about, or maybe some habits you picked up. So like during the rehab process, were there any habits that have stuck with you now that you picked up during that?
Yes. And I think the biggest one is, you know, being more aware of, you know, not overworking myself. I think that was the biggest key I took away, because, you know, a lot of people told me that my knee injury started because, you know, I never give myself much time off. You know, I like to be working constantly. That's just who I am. Like, I love playing basketball. I love working out. I love doing all the things that go into playing basketball. You know, I don't give my body enough time for ample rest. And, you know, me, like, even during our rehab process, we'd have big rehab days and I'd be texting you later in the day, what else can I do when I'm at home later? Or like asking you, what else can I do when I'm at home? And you'd have to tell me literally, just do nothing. Like, ice your knee and relax and we'll pick it up again tomorrow. I felt like every day, like around the clock, I had to be doing something, like whether it was the Compex unit, trying to get a quad pump, whether it was, you know, coming back to the gym and, you know, hitting the leg extension machine again to try to get another, you know, 20 reps in to try to strengthen my quad again, you know, trying to do all these crazy things. And at some point, like, you just got to give your body some time to just naturally heal itself. Just rest. Like, when your day is done, trust the people that are doing your rehab, that they are doing the most you can do without hurting yourself. And I think some of that stuff definitely probably set me back a little bit, but, you know, that's just me. I wanted to get back so bad, and, you know, I was trying to do stuff around the clock, but knowing what I know now, like, sometimes you just need to give yourself some time.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think we live in a culture of do, right? Like we're literally paid based on what we do and what we produce. And like other cultures like reward you for taking time off. Like some European countries, like, hey, like we'll actually encourage you to go take time away, right? Because like the value of rest influences your ability to perform, right? Because if you're constantly emptying the bucket, like draining the bucket, eventually that bucket's going to run dry. So to your point, like you got to be able to take the ebbs and flows of, quote unquote, sometimes doing your job is doing nothing, and you have to be okay with that to then reap the benefits the next day. But at the same time, flip side of that though, is I'd much rather have someone like yourself that says, hey, what more can I do? Rather than the guy that says, I'm trying to get him to do more. Right. And I think like you taking the ownership, saying, like, I want to do more. I'd rather have that, let's call it a problem, than the problem of, man, I can't get this guy to do anything. Like, we're just trying to push him along. So like, I don't want to ever discredit someone that wants to work hard and wants to do the work. I think there's like what you found, right? Eventually you found, okay, I don't necessarily have to physically do the work, right? Maybe my work is, okay, I need to live in the Normatec boots for the next 3 hours to help get some of the swelling out. I'm still doing something, although physically I'm actually kind of recovering and regenerating to try and help myself be better for the next day.
Yeah. It's a fine, in a lot of instances, it's a fine balance, especially when you're going through something for the first time, like I was with this knee surgery. Like, I didn't know what to do. So in a lot of instances, you know, I ask questions like, what's the best thing I can do for the rest of the day? Like, I can't go home, like with rehab for an hour, hour and a half. I can't go home and sit down all day, like being off my leg and everything and not being able to play and practice and do all this stuff. I'm like, there's got to be something that I can do. Well, like, there's got to be something more. And knowing what I know now, like, the best thing you can do sometimes is just nothing. Like, the best thing you can do is go home, get off your feet, and just sleep and let your body rest.
But to that point of like going home and wanting to do something, I think another thing that's underappreciated when you're going through a long-term rehab is a part of your identity is forcibly taken from you, right? Like you just said, I love to hoop. I love to be on the court with the boys. Like, even there's just like the camaraderie that comes into being on the court and being a part of it. Like, right. So a lot of times during rehab, you have to come in early to get your stuff done before the rest of the squad gets in. That's going to be a part of practice. Then when practice happens, you're either trying to do some more rehab on the side, so you're kind of removed and isolated there, or you're just kind of standing there on the sidelines watching something that you can't participate in. So like, I think one thing that I've noticed being in my space, watching individuals go through that process, is just having an appreciation. Man, they were just told they can't do one of the things that they love to do the most. And it's not like it was up to their choice. It just kind of happened. I think that's a really tough thing to go through for anybody, not just like someone going through rehab. I just think someone that like gets fired or they lose their job or something else happens in life that it's just taken from you. I think the stress and the anxiety that comes around not being able to do something forcibly and quickly like that can be a challenge.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's so much more that goes into it. Like, rehabbing during a season is tough. Rehabbing when you're not, like, I did both. Like, I had the rehab with you and the team, and then obviously I got released right before the playoffs. So I obviously had to continue my rehab somewhere else. And when you're around the team, the aspect of, man, I want to get back out there so badly just to be with like our team and play and be with the guys and, going to games and having to rehab in the back during games and then sitting behind the bench, like not really being a part of everything that's going on. That's tough. It's mentally hard every day. But then, obviously once I got released and it's like, now I focus on, that when that aspect of is kind of removed, it makes it easier to mentally stick with it a little bit more because there's no extra added level of frustration. That's at least how I felt. Like it sucked, like watching the playoffs, at home by myself, not being with the team and being around everyone all day. But at the same time, like, I was way more focused on like just me and not everything else that goes into it as being part of like a team and an organization.
There can be a lot of noise and there's a lot of reminders of the things that, like the thought that came to mind is you're reminded every day of what you can't do. And that's very, very challenging because all you want to do is I know I can, I believe I can, but there's this physical constraint that's saying, hey, we can't do it right now. So like, that was a thought that came to mind. Like, do you feel like that's what you were experiencing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard. There's no doubt about it. Like, it's not easy showing up to practice every single day. Even the things you grow to like dislike about like being in the NBA, like shoot-arounds. Like, I'll be honest, like shoot-arounds they're not super fun. Like, they get you prepared for the games, but like, sometimes like they become monotonous over the course of the season. I would have given up a lot of stuff to be able to just participate in a shoot-around when I was going through that whole rehab process, but that wasn't my timeline. And, if I say you were to drop it again on me this year, like I'd have to go through the same exact process again. I guarantee you I would be like almost a totally different person because, once you're done and your rehab's kind of coming to a close, you obviously get to reflect back on everything. And like the first 6 to 8 weeks of my process when I was finished felt like 3 years prior. And I felt like a wise old man at the end of it. Like, like I know so much now. Like, and it really was it was 6-7 months, like in total. It was a drop in the bucket to the grand scheme of like the course of my life. But, just the beginning and everything felt like it was an eternity. Like those 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks felt like they went by so slow, but and I'm back. I'm healthy. And it really was, it was a little over a year ago that I had surgery. It was 13 months ago. Feels like it was like 10 years ago at this point. It's just kind of crazy.
What would the old wise man of Frank right now tell young buck at the start of rehab?
Take your time. Like, every day is not going to be perfect. You're not just going to move in some straight, perfect line. Like, you're going to have days where things just don't go your way, and you just can't take that frustration and take it out on other people, which was one of my personal favorite things to do, I guess. Not really take it out on other people. I just shut down. Like, and I remember you would come and talk to me and be like, what's going on? I'd be like, I don't know. Cause I would just like shut down. And it's the first time I like dealt with stuff, because you know me, like I show up every day. I joke around with people. I mess around. Some days you couldn't get me to come back into the weight room to do things, because me and Dario would just be messing around with each other all day. But I don't know. There was just days where I was just so frustrated. Like, I couldn't like talk. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And it's tough. But knowing what I know now, I don't think any of that stuff would have happened, because I would have known, going through the whole process, there's going to be great days. There's going to be bad days. Not every day is going to be perfect. And not every bad day is like the sign that you're never going to be able to play basketball again, because there was, how things can spiral in your head. Oh. Like when you have when you're supposed to, say, the first time you get back on the court and you get like 5 minutes in and you start feeling pain, and you're like, oh, this is it. I'm done. Like, I'm never going to be able to play again. That's how your like mind kind of spirals. And being at the end of it and looking backwards, I'd just be like, there's just going to be days like that. And there's not much you can do to prevent it. You just have to work your way through it.
It's good advice.
Yep.
Take some time. Things take time. There was a book I read. I want to say Surgery is a Placebo. And I remember, like, it's just this one quote just stuck with me. The purpose of the book was talking about, hey, like, looking at all the evidence, there's a lot of surgeries that happen in this world, right? Mm-hmm. Surgery is a business in itself too, just like anything. And they started looking at the evidence of, hey, is surgery really warranted? So for example, like meniscectomy, going in and clipping a meniscus. Sometimes it's warranted, but sometimes it's not. And they kind of look at, so that's an example, like, should you or should you not get surgery? And this one doctor, I don't know the name, and I couldn't even tell you what page it's on, but I remember him saying, oftentimes Western medicine is a distraction for the natural healing process to occur. And like, hearing that is like made me reflect numerous times, because from my perspective, I want to do things with you too. Like, I want to do things for the guy, like, oh, man, like, we can do more. Like, we want to push it more. And then sometimes you just got to respect that, hey, bone takes time to heal. Muscle takes time to heal. Ligaments take time to heal. And no matter how much infrared light or how much recovery you do, dial in all the nutrition, sometimes you just need time. No matter how many
magic wands you wave over your knee.
Well, I mean, being a Harry Potter fan, I'm sure you had your magic wands waving over there.
I mean, I try, and it's true. Like, at some point, just your body's natural process just has to take over. And that's the tough part, and that's what I talked about earlier. It's the tough part to learn that, like, say me and you have the exact same knee surgery. Like, we would have done it at the exact same time. You could have come back 3 months faster than I did, and that's just the way my body reacts to things. Like, there's not much. Like, I can't change my body chemistry, the way I heal, the way I move, the way I need to be able to do certain things to play my sport the way I play it. And just everybody's different. Yeah, I wish surgery was just a placebo.
One question I have for you, just like hearing you talk through things and just kind of reflecting, like, you're right, like you said, hey, like, you reflect at the end of your process. Well, hey, same thing for me. On those days when it's tough, right? One thing that comes to mind, I think I lose sight of, is trying to keep things light and fun. Now, granted, personalities can do that, and sometimes the rehab is monotonous, right? Like, you have your strength days, you have your endurance days. Are there ways from your perspective that we can make rehab more enjoyable or entertaining for y'all?
Yes and no. Like, it all depends on the person. Like, I think that's a big thing. Like, personalities sometimes clash, sometimes they mesh well, and it's the same thing I feel like when you're rehabbing. Like, sometimes the way you rehab is like perfect for me. But obviously there's like, if I went and rehabbed with someone else, like I'd be like, this guy sucks. Like, I don't like this guy. Like, me and him don't work well together. And, obviously for me and you, like, we mesh well on like a personality level. I trust your opinion. I worked with you for years. So like, I knew based off of like other stuff that you would be the one to be able to help me with my knee and do everything that I needed. And then also at the same time, like, you also let me be me. Like, you knew coming into things that I was going to be like, okay, I'm ready for more. Like, I want more. And you were always like, okay, let's try it. Like, let's see if today works. Like, and I'm sure there's other people out there that would have been like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm not going to let you do this. But you were open to let me like try certain things. And I was always very appreciative. And I think that allowed me to not like get mad and get frustrated and not like get down on myself. And because if I would have made the whole process miserable, like just showing up every day, just like pissed off and miserable every single day, you'd have been like, okay, I don't know how much longer I can do this for. But if, you allow me to be myself and allow me to like, you knew that I was going to come in and ask for more stuff and I wanted more and I wanted things to go faster, and you were receptive to, you handled things in your own way. I feel like there was sometimes in there you put things I thought was doing more, but it was really just like kind of on the same level, because you were trying to trick in my brain into thinking I was doing a lot more than I was. But, that's just part of just having a good relationship and good personalities. Like, that can definitely keep it fun.
Got it. My perspective is, and I would say that the beauty of being in pro sports, I have to acknowledge the environment. I get to see you every day, and sometimes twice a day, and sometimes 3 times a day, depending. Right. So I always know in the back of my mind, if we don't get what we're going to get this morning, I know I can try this afternoon. I know I can try it again tomorrow. So for me, having the patience of, okay, like, I'm okay if the plan was X, but you come in presenting as A, then we're going to chop it up and go something different. But I think with that, like, yes, the relationship and the trust aspect, but you're an active participant in the rehab too. Like, I don't believe in telling you, hey, this is what it's going to be, and this is what we're doing. My friend, shout out Stacy Harden, she once said, like, it's like the analogy she uses is like hiking Everest, right? It's not like leader and follower. It's like, hey, we're in this together and we're going to go up this mountain together. And I think there has to be that give and take of, hey, like, can I try this and do this? Let's talk about this. Let's think about like the things that you're alluding to in those days where I'm like, yeah, let's go try it. Let's go do it. Because first and foremost, do no harm. There was times where you're like, hey, Adam, can I go run? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, we are not there. But it's like, hey, Adam, can I go try some marching? Can I go try this exercise in the weight room with Corey, our strength coach? And I'm like thinking about it, like, yeah, that's like that fits within what we're trying to do. And I think if I were to discourage you in those moments, I think for me, when the time came for me to ask you to do things, I think I would have been met with resistance, because you're like, in your position, at least what I would imagine is, Adam never lets me do what I want to do, or he never like hears me out. So why am I going to listen to what he does? And so I think the approach I tried to take is hear you out, understand why, process, okay, does this make sense medically and safety wise? And if it does, okay, you know what? Let's go for it. And I think like hearing you say that is refreshing. And I think more people need to be willing to hear your perspective, because if you're not committed to it or you don't believe in it, you're just the effort's just not going to be there. The effort and work ethic is not going to be there. So having your buy-in because you believe in it, because you want it, and you made that choice and that decision is so powerful. And I think that's what eventually you turned a corner, and that's what got you through it.
Yeah. And I mean, you laid out the plan. Like your plans were always very detailed. Like, it wasn't like, we're going to try this, we're going to see how this goes. It was like, no, here's the plan. Like, this is what your next week or 2-week block is going to look like. And that made it easier for me going in, because you laid out what was going to happen before it happened. Like, nothing was like a surprise to me. And like, once we started doing things, it was always, okay, that didn't go perfect, and we're not going to move on until we perfect this certain block so that we can get from point A to point B, from point B to point C. That made things a lot easier for me too. Just knowing what to expect, like what my next 5 to 7 days of rehab look like at all times. And there was never like anything where it was like, okay, in 2 weeks, it wasn't like, if you do this perfect, you're going to be able to run next week. Like, you know what I mean? It was very realistic in detailed in what I needed to be doing. Is like, you have to hit these certain thresholds to be able to move on to do this. And then this chain is to get your leg like extension back in a better spot. So like, it was all about building blocks to get back to the ultimate goal, which was to play again. And I guess I didn't understand how much, when your legs are always kind of perfect and you don't have to think about all the things. It was like, okay, I got to be able to do this so I can cut. I got to be able to do this so I can run and stop. I have to be able to do this so I can push off and accelerate. Like, there's just so many little things that go into just one thing you're just used to doing that when it gets taken away, you have to build to that point. And you being able to like explain all that in detail and lay out the plan and how we're going to do it just made things a lot easier for me.
Injury humbles you real quick.
Really fast.
Really fast.
Really, really fast.
And I think, I think of like any state, any like moms or dads that like, they're a full-time parent, but they're no longer, running around, and then they go to play with their kids and they're like, wow, I can't do the things I used to do. Like, right. It's almost like the same aspect of once you haven't done it for a while, you kind of forget what it's like.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the rehab process.
It's not like riding a bike. It's not at all. It's like, the best analogy I could put is like, you're used to riding a bike and a bike always just works. And now somebody completely takes the bike apart and you have to figure out how to put everything back together. So you have to take the wheels off, you have to take the spokes off, you have to take the handlebars off, the chain, everything. Like, everything gets taken off, and you got to like step-by-step process. You got to start with the frame, then you got to put everything kind of back together just so you can ride a bike again. It's not just like, oh, the bike just fell over and I can just had this one little thing fix and get back on. No, it's not.
If only it was that simple.
I wish
if
things
it was
were
that simple. If it was that simple, I wouldn't have a job. You'd be doing your own rehab.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that kind of, I guess, frustrates me about this environment, and like we lived it, was how the business aspect can influence the success or the outcome of, let's just call it rehab, performance, even just the health and overall health of anybody. And in our particular case, there was deadlines that had to be met, and unfortunately, we were no longer able to continue our rehab process. Can you shed some light into how, let's say, trade deadlines or contract years may influence a rehab or training process?
I mean, that's just, I guess, the nature of professional sports. Like you said in the beginning, like, our bodies being healthy is how we, earn our keep, earn our check. And in the NBA, there's only a finite amount of spots on every single team, every single year. So from a player perspective, being healthy is the most important thing, especially when you're, for me being last year on a 1-year deal, like, you can't necessarily afford to miss an entire season. Like, that makes things a lot harder moving forward. Am I going to have a spot next year? Am I going to be healthy enough to play next year? So it pushes those deadlines, because in the back of your mind, you're like, I have to be healthy. I have to be on the court. I have to get back out there and prove to everyone I'm healthy, because I'm going to be a free agent again this summer. And if there's going to be question marks about, my ability to play, like, nobody's going to sign me. So from that perspective, it makes things difficult. And then from a team perspective, if you're the number one team in the league and you have somebody who's multiple guys in our case who aren't even going to be able to play in the playoffs, like, you need a roster spot for somebody who's healthy. Like, what if 3-4 guys in the playoffs, get hurt and then you don't have anything? From the business side of things, that's why I set my goals. I need to be healthy and back playing by the playoffs. And, just unfortunately it didn't happen. Like, the timeline, my body it became unrealistic. And, that's why you end up getting waived at the end of the season. Like, I would have loved to have been able to have been involved, but, looking back, like I told you, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I was able to get that out of my mind, like, get all of those, I need to be healthy. I need to prove it to the team that I'm healthy. I need to prove it to everyone else that I'm healthy. I had to get back and, help the team in the playoffs. It kind of took all those unrealistic, goals and barriers and expectations that I needed to meet in my mind, and just set me back to a point where, now the new goal is just healthy. Like, there's no, I need to play, I need to do this. It's just number one goal, just be healthy. So it's kind of like a step, and I ended up going somewhere else. I wouldn't say totally starting over, but the goals were a little bit different. So the building blocks to get there were not me rushing you through to try to get me to meet those team and business expectations every single day. It was just, okay, now what's best for me?
Mm-hmm. The pressure was off.
Yeah.
And that's a very real part of this space is there's deadlines, there's games, there's contracts, there's rotations, all that comes into play, and saying, okay, what's the best timeline that we can provide? But at the end of the day, from my perspective, it's always do no harm, support you as best you can within reason of having an awareness to that space. And I think in my experience, those that come into this space, having never been in it, it's a struggle or a friction point, and they just don't understand. I don't understand, like, why can't we do this? Well, we need them back early because this, and this. And it's a part of it, right? And unfortunately, sometimes in your particular case, deadlines aren't met. And like you said, like, what was best for you was you just needed more time. And that's okay. That's good for you. On the business aspect, sometimes that plays a part in it, right? Because at the end of the day, the NBA is an entertainment industry. Yeah. Because you think about the amount of games we play, like that goes against everything that you would recommend for a healthy person playing 80. I mean, we were both just talking like before the show. What, you landed last night at what time?
Like 1:30, somewhere in there.
So you probably got to bed at what time?
3:30.
Yeah, I didn't get to bed till 4:45 this morning, right? So it's like, how do you say we're trying to do right by everybody and provide high performance and high healthcare when the environment itself sets you up for failure in those particular instances, given the travel side of things? So when you have days, I don't even want to say have days, but like when you have the back-to-backs, right? You have the back-to-backs, you have the travel. How do you get yourself up to even get out there mentally and physically to go play?
I mean, to go from, city to city, we just got off of a 5-game road trip. We were gone for like 11 or 12 days. And it's not easy at all. Trust me. We had a back-to-back in Utah and Denver. That's just like altitude alone. That's just like a gauntlet, just like a 2-game struggle just to get through.
I don't think people appreciate how difficult. Were you in Denver on the back end?
Yes.
So we have to, because it's okay. People hear back to back, but there's so much more that goes into it from timing aspect, right? Yep. So let's talk about why. And there's got to be a stat of like the record of the away team coming into Denver on a back to back. I think it's piss poor.
Yeah.
Right. Denver probably gets 6-7 wins a year off people coming in on a back end of a back to back. So if we circle back to why is the back end of a back to back in Denver so challenging?
Well, the travel for starters, like just getting to Denver, and like it all starts off just getting to Denver just kind of sucks in general. Like flying from Utah to Denver, it's an hour and something minute flight. You're landing at after midnight, 1:00 in the morning. It's like a 45-minute drive from the airport to the hotel. You get to the hotel, you try to get to sleep like right away when you get in there, and that's for me, I've always said this, I'm not a person that just can like waltz into like a room and just like lay down and go to sleep. Like it's like kind of a process for me. Like I gotta wind down, get tired, like lay down in bed for a little while before I actually get tired enough to fall asleep. And then you're already tired from the night before when you wake up, kind of go to the gym, get your workout in. And then like you always get this like burst of energy playing in Denver. Obviously the altitude plays a massive part. Like breathing there is just different. And it's the best way I can describe it is this year is like we hung with Denver for like 3.5 quarters. And then you could just tell when the fatigue and everything just sat it. Like it just became a huge factor in the game, and we ended up losing by like 25. Like it was a close game through like 3.5 quarters, like extremely close. And then they just it was like watching two people run a race for a certain amount of time and then one person just like falling over from exhaustion and the other team just like, all right, just continue to keep pushing the pace. In Denver, they know they have that advantage, and they try to like run people out of the gym in the beginning of the game just to get you tired. They push the pace knowing that they're used to playing in that altitude, and the team that's there, especially us, an Eastern Conference team that plays there once a year, like we're not used to it. So it's a tough trip. Like playing in Denver is tough. Like the best games I think I've ever had playing in Denver, and even Salt Lake to an extent, is, you know, getting there a day before and being able to get like a hard workout in the day before, like where you get a little bit of cardio so you get kind of used to it. And then you have like your day to recover and then play the game. But when you got that back to back, there's just not much you can do.
No, it's the back to what kills me is like I was exhausted going in to we're in the middle of a road trip too, and I was just exhausted showing up today, or even sometimes like going into the arena, and I'm just having to do pregame treatments, and I'm like yawning over here, and I just think, man, how like they're on the same schedule as I am, but they're physically taxing themselves way harder, yet they have to go out and play. And I just sit there and like, it is impressive to see how y'all can get yourselves ready to go out and play, and a lot of times go out there and win too, which is it just blows my mind how y'all are able to do that. And maybe it comes with being in the league and you get adapted to it for a while. Like I think like probably every rookie hits they hit a wall some point in January where you're like,
you wake up and you have no idea where you are. Like just exhausted. And that happened to me. I remember my rookie wall was, we were in DC, Washington DC. We were about to play the Wizards, and I woke up, it was an off day, but I was so used to our schedule just going day after day after day after day that I woke up and freaked out because I thought I missed the bus. I remember like waking up like, oh, I forgot to set an alarm. Like I'm going to get fined. I'm going to get in trouble. It was an off day. You just day after day, you're not used to just having like any time off. And especially once you get into like the meat of the season, like we are like right before the All-Star break, that's when everything, tough road trips, you have 9 games in 15 days, stuff like that. It just becomes a lot.
It is a lot.
But you do develop a routine, like the physical aspect of being able to play every night. You know, it's going to be tough. You're going to be dealing with injuries, things that are bothering you. But you know, the biggest thing you develop over the course of time is like mentally getting yourself prepared to play every single night. And you know, whether you're in a position like me where you're not going to play every single night, like even then it's still tough to mentally every single day. Like it's easy now, but developing that like routine that you do, it's just all part of literally getting your mind ready to play that night. And if your mind I truly believe if you get your mind in the right spot, like if you go into the game like, oh, I'm tired, I'm not really feeling it tonight, your body's going to respond that way. But if your mind is like, okay, I'm ready to go, I really want to play tonight, I'm ready, I've done everything I need to do, your body kind of adapts in response to that too.
I get that. Is that how you like mentally, right? Like what I heard is you mentally psych yourself up. You kind of have, I think some people might say the toughness, the stamina is like right over the course of the season. Like you probably got to do that a lot. Is that like one of the ways you find your small wins throughout the season?
Absolutely. You know, you can see it too. Like when a guy's not there mentally, like whether it's in the game, on the bench, you know, before the game, like everyone knows. But like for me, I always try to do what I can every single day. Like every game day, I try to keep the same routine. You know, it's not like a superstition or anything like that. Like if my game day routine like was different, it'd be one thing, but I just know like my routine, like, okay, go to shoot around, get my little bit of work in, come home, eat, take a little nap, lay down, do a little like norm attack, get my body ready, and then get to the gym. And then when I get to the gym, I try to keep my same like timing routine because I know, you know, I'm not, you know this about me, like when I get to the arena, like I don't really talk to people. Like I'm not like one of those joke around guys in the locker room. And that's more so just for the mental aspect of getting myself ready to play every day. In whether I play or don't play, like I try to keep that same routine so that when it is my time to play, like I know this is a good routine for me and it works. So that's like, it's almost like training yourself every single day, whether you're going to see a reward from it or not, like you don't know. But over the course of the season, like you're going to play. Like if you're on the roster, you're going to get an opportunity to play. So, just being mentally ready night in and night out, because you don't know, somebody can twist an ankle in the first quarter and you got to be thrust in. And if you were mentally checked out in the day leading up to that, like it's not going to go well. Yeah. So it's just the mental preparation and physical preparation every single day. I try to keep my same warm-up routines, everything, just so that like I know I'm ready to play like if I need to that night.
So it sounds like preparation and routine is how you like continue to find your small wins throughout the process. Yeah. How would you define a small win?
Sometimes they're tough. Sometimes they're tough to define. Like, obviously the game remains king. Like the game determines, like, even sometimes when you go out and you don't do anything. Like say I showed up to the game and I just sat there like this on the bench, didn't say a word every single game. Like sometimes you can still have a great feeling if your team plays amazing and everything goes well. But, I think I find my small wins in being a great teammate. That's kind of like how I define, because I'm going to do like every game I'm going to put the same amount into it to be ready to play. Like I'm not worried about that about myself. Like I just know like tomorrow's a game day. I'm going to do everything that I can to be ready to play tomorrow night, regardless of if I do or not. But your attitude and how you show up and like the teammate you are when the game starts, I think that says a lot. And that's kind of how I find my small wins.
I like that,
just trying to be, whether I can see something that's happening in a game and give someone some advice, cheering for someone who's having a rough night, like tell them just like, forget about it. Like it's over. Just, kind of sometimes I say with McHale on the Suns, when he'd start off games like missing shots, I'd just walk over to him and be like, do you think you're going to make a shot like anytime soon? And you could just tell, like, there's just some guys that once you talk a little bit of crap to them, like something kind of switches in their brain. I'm not going to take full credit for that, but he does. I do that to him. Like, do you think you're going to make a shot anytime soon? And then he makes his next shot and points at me. Like, okay, I'll be that guy. Prove me wrong. You know what I mean? It's all about being a good teammate. That's definitely like if you got an organization full of like bad apples and stuff, like I haven't been a part of that, but I've seen some other teams that are like that where you can tell like no one really meshes and no one gels. They don't really have like a good teammate on their team. It looks like it could be extremely frustrating. So I find my wins in, being just trying to, I don't view it as being like a great teammate or not. It's just kind of me. I just like being myself, and I don't want any situation or any person to change like who I am and how I like go about things.
You are true to your character at all times.
I'm me. Like there's nobody else. Like I'm just going to continue to keep being myself.
One thing that wanted to just get your take on, having someone that's been a part of the league for a long time, gone through rehab, you've been through a couple teams, been a couple different training staffs, medical staffs, private practitioners when you had to go out and find your own rehab at the same time, right? People are all like, we're in this era of longevity, in this era of people wanting to upgrade health and performance. For someone that's been around kind of like an infinite amount of resources and a lot of good experiences, like what advice do you have for anyone that wants to upgrade their health and performance?
That's hard. Obviously because we're on such an elite level, like I don't like saying it like that, but we are like kind of on an elite level that we have access to pretty much anywhere we want to go to, and we can afford to pay for those things. So it's a little bit different in that sense that, I can go out and find what works best for me, but I think it's simple advice. Just find what works best for you. Like you're not gonna, like if you're a professional athlete or a high-level college athlete or something, like you're going to be able to find things that work out for well for you. But if you're, I would say just like kind of like a normal person, like the scales are just different, and find what works for you, find what you're comfortable with. See, like the proof is in the results of things. I know a lot of people who don't even bother like trying different things. Like they get so stuck in their ways. Like I've tried everything. I tried, certain methods of rehab. In the summers, I'd try different, strength and conditioning ideologies and, rehab ideologies and all this different stuff. And I just found what works for me, what gets me to where I need to be. So that's the best thing I honestly think I can say is just find what works for you.
I feel like we're all doing 80% of the time, we're all doing the same thing.
Yep.
Things are just marketed and branded a certain way because we're all, someone's trying to sell something or make it your own. And I think what you just said, we're finding something that works for you is probably the most important thing rather than trying. It's almost like the advice I'm hearing is don't try and put the round peg in the square hole.
Yep.
Like find the round hole for yourself and go with it. And if it's not what the social media is saying, if it's not what your spouse or your partner or your best friend is doing, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's got to be the results. And if the results are there for you, great. I think that's great advice, man. All right, you want to have some fun questions? We got to get through some. We got to bring out the Frank personality here, man. Let's talk NBA specific stuff. What is your favorite NBA city? Not home. You can't say Chicago. Outside of Chicago. I know, outside of Chicago. What is Frank's favorite NBA city to travel to?
Can I say Phoenix now?
I knew you were going to say that. I know you were going to I'm like, I said Chicago. He's going to you can't say Phoenix. All right, we'll take Phoenix. No, that's fair. Phoenix. Why Phoenix?
The weather's perfect. It's great outside. There's a lot of stuff to do. I just enjoy being there. At the end of the day, being there for 3 years, I have a house there. I love living there. It's just great. I don't know.
What's your favorite arena to play in?
Toronto, weirdly enough. I've always just loved Toronto.
Why?
I don't know
what
why.
about it?
The fans are always there.
Okay.
Always there. They're super nice fans. They're really good. And when you play in big games there, it's fun. They make that arena fun. Obviously, you could say there's rowdier arenas. You could say there's better shooting arenas, there's better visiting arenas, everything, just the accommodations. But for some reason, Toronto's always been my favorite one to play on the road.
You want to know what's crazy is I couldn't tell you the last time I went to Toronto because for some here's even more fun fact. Right, every January everyone has that long road trip.
Yep.
Ever since I've been in Phoenix for the last 4 years, I've never gone on that long trip. First year we never had it because of COVID hit. Second year I had to stay back from contact tracing. That's when COVID was in the thick of it. The next year I actually got COVID, so I had to stay back. And then this year I had a bunch of rehab cases where I'm like, okay, I'm not traveling. I don't think I've gone to Toronto once since I've been here.
You're missing out, man.
I know. That's why when you said that, I'm like, I have to remember, what is Toronto like?
Well, most people don't like it because they have to do the whole customs, the extra travel. It's it takes an extra 30 minutes.
Yeah, I hear that.
And then this city, I like Toronto. I've spent time there in the summer before. It's a good time.
I got you. I would imagine the cold weather probably not.
Yeah.
The most
when
fun.
it's cold anywhere, it's after living in Phoenix, once something's cold, it's just tainted. It's it's on the blacklist.
I got it. All right, ready for some pop culture, Frank style?
Yes.
All right, favorite character from The Office?
Michael Scott.
Why?
I mean, Michael Scott is the best created television character of all time.
Is that who would you be? Would you be best friends with him in real life?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see you guys.
I'm the dry humor, just everything. That's the dorkiness. That's me.
How about favorite Disney Channel original movie? The OG original ones that were on TV?
I don't know. I'd say Brink.
Yes. All right, I'm with Brink. It's either Brink
Team
or
Exploits, baby.
What's his
Team
name? Val?
Pup and Suds.
Val?
Yeah. Just the best life advice ever of all time in that movie. Skate better. I don't know why I loved that movie so much when I was a kid. I hated skateboarding. I hated rollerblading. I hated doing anything that was like that. Just skate better.
It really, that is simple yet effective advice.
Yeah.
How about if you could be a character from Rocket Power, who would you choose?
Otto.
Why Otto?
I don't know.
It's just cool.
Yeah.
Cool name.
It is cool.
Hits all the tricks.
Yeah.
Greatest Adam Sandler movie of all time.
Ooh, that's tough. There's so many good ones. I have to say Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. That's a tough choice between the two, but I'm going to go with Happy Gilmore. I think the Happy Gilmore one-liners just hit for me.
Well, that probably leads into the next thought I had. Was what's the movie that you love to quote the most?
Movie? Probably Step Brothers over the course of my life. TV show is definitely by far The Office. Like, I have an Office quote for literally anything, any situation. I'll think of, like, if you give me like a minute, I could like think of anything. I just have like my brain, and you know this, is just random movie and TV quotes. Like, they just sit in there all day.
Okay. Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, we can have full conversations just speaking in quotes. Remember that happening. All right. Would you rather wear the same socks for a month or the same underwear for a week?
Same socks for a month.
Ooh, okay.
I just don't have dirty, smelly feet. I've never had smelly feet, so I don't deal with... Like, I know some people have really smelly... Like, they wear socks all the time and their feet start to stink. Mine just aren't like that.
I'm sure your fiance's happy about that.
Yes.
Yeah, she probably appreciates that.
Although, underwear for a week, I don't know. That would probably get dicey.
Yeah. Would you rather have Freddie Mercury's voice or Chris Brown's dance moves?
Freddie Mercury's voice.
Ooh, why?
Just off the top of my head, in 20 years, people aren't going to remember Chris Brown's dance moves.
That's
or
fair.
40 years. But for the rest of the time, people are going to hear Freddie Mercury sing.
Good point. Never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
I always thought busting out a cool dance move at a party would be fun.
That'd be great. But then I grab the microphone and put people in a trance with my voice.
What song would you sing?
Does it have to be a Queen song?
It can be whatever you want. What song would you trance everybody with?
American Pie.
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. Great movie, by the way, too.
I know. Great movie. Great song, great movie.
Would you rather spend the weekend with pirates or ninjas?
Pirates.
Ooh, okay. I would rather go with ninjas.
Pirates.
Okay.
I love Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, if I could go be like a pirate in like the 1700s or whenever pirates were around, I'm sure it's forever, but like the heyday of pirates, that would be awesome.
Would you rather give up cursing forever or give up pizza for 12 years?
Cursing forever.
Yeah, can't do it. Guy from Chicago.
I would never give up pizza.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Have someone read all your text messages or view all your photos on your phone?
View all my photos on my phone.
Got it.
Actually... Yeah, probably view all my photos. I don't really have... I just have, like, funny screenshots and stuff in my phone. Pictures of me, dog, fiance, friends. Nothing... I don't... My text messages, though, you would, like... I don't know. You would find, like, maybe my credit card information or something like that stored somewhere. So that's the reason. Not that either of them are bad at all.
Got it. If people want to find out more about you, are you active on social at all? Do people no?
I mean, I have them, but I don't really go on them much anymore.
I got you.
My fiance is trying to get me to do more TikTok, and I'm just like,
you would kill TikTok.
She's started posting TikToks of me on hers. Some of them have like blown up and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah. She's like, you got to do more. I'm like, okay, cool. You can keep doing them without me knowing. Without my consent.
Yeah, I get that. All right, dude. Hey, man, I appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate you sharing advice for everybody. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did too, because it's just like these conversations aren't had enough. I think there's too many people in my industry that, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what I believe in. And sometimes we just forget to talk to the people that go through it. So I just appreciate you taking the time, man.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.